High in the mist-wrapped Andes, where silence clings to every stone, Dr. Elena Vargas stood on the threshold of her career, and possibly of something far older than history itself. Though branded a maverick by academic circles, Elena had long suspected that Machu Picchu's abandonment was not due to conquest or plague, but a deliberate, veiled event lost to time. Her latest expedition, funded reluctantly by a skeptical university board, was her final attempt to prove the Inca were far more advanced and connected to something otherworldly than scholars dared to believe. Her team was a blend of tension and talent. Mateo, the cynical but brilliant epigrapher desperate to disprove her theories. Layla, a young tech-savvy linguist hungry for discovery. And Inti, the local Quechua guide whose lineage traced back to Inca nobility. It was Inti who first noticed the irregularity beneath the Temple of the Sun, an unnatural vibration in the earth when the winds were still. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed it. A hidden substructure. The team carefully excavated, revealing a sealed stone hatch perfectly aligned with the June solstice sun. What lay beneath defied all known engineering of the time. A narrow passage of seamless walls, embedded with faintly glowing minerals, pulsing as if alive. At its terminus stood a smooth, black monolith, unlike anything ever recorded in South American archaeology. It emitted a low hum, felt more in bone than in ear, and distorted compass readings. Even the air changed in its presence, denser, charged. Layla's instruments failed. Mateo dismissed it as geological interference, but Elena felt it. This was no mere artifact. The monolith wasn't built by the Inca, it had been hidden by them. And now, for the first time in centuries, it was waking. Word of the monolith's discovery stirred international buzz, but in the surrounding valleys, it stirred something older, something ancestral. Elders from the nearby Quechua communities arrived uninvited but not unwelcome. Draped in hand-woven cloaks and bearing ancient eyes that seemed to see through time, they requested a private audience with Elena. One elder, Mama Quilla, gently placed a bundle before her. Not gold, not relics, quipus, dozens of them, their colored cords intricately knotted in baffling patterns. "These," she whispered, "are not ledgers, they are warnings." Elena, skeptical but intrigued, enlisted Layla to examine them. Patterns emerged not just in numerical arrangements, but celestial ones. Eclipses, solstices, and star movements encoded in loops and braids. These were ancient sky charts, layered with myth. The elders spoke of the Quipu Guardians, a sacred order of priest astronomers chosen to maintain harmony with the sky ancestors. The Guardians vanished during a great cosmic alignment, coinciding with the last recorded activity at Machu Picchu. Inti confirmed what his grandmother had told him in bedtime stories. The Guardians used a sacred brew called Tontinsu Yunu, a potent hallucinogen brewed from rare Andean plants. Under its influence, they entered visions, some returning changed, others never returning at all. Elena's team recreated the ritual under supervision, and what followed was staggering. Visions of stars bleeding into rivers, stairways unfolding into the sky, and beings with elongated faces, wrapped in radiant cloaks of starlight. The monolith, seen in the trance, stood at the center of it all, pulsing like a heart, calling. Mateo scoffed at the hallucinations, but others, especially Inti, knew better. These were not dreams. They were memories encoded across generations. And the monolith? It had been a beacon once. Now it was awakening again with purpose. As the solstice neared, the monolith's hum deepened, its frequency vibrating through metal tools, camera gear, and even bone. Layla's instruments began picking up subsonic pulses, rhythmic, deliberate, like a coded transmission. Then came the dreams. Elena, Layla, and even skeptical Mateo began sharing the same nocturnal visions. Vast crystalline cities floating in nebulae, spiral staircases descending into light, and beings of impossible geometry whose eyes shimmered like stars. They were not dreams, they were invitations. When a second skeletal chamber was discovered near the monolith, a forensic team was dispatched. The findings were earth-shattering. The remains bore isotope signatures inconsistent with any Earth-based environment. Bone marrow saturated with unknown heavy elements. Cellular structures altered by long-term exposure to zero gravity. These people, if they could still be called that, had been somewhere else. Not buried, not abandoned, returned. Mateo, once the loudest skeptic, began to change. He spoke less, stared often at the monolith, and scrawled cryptic symbols, fractals, intersecting triangles, and glyphs that pulsed under blacklight. One night, he whispered in Quechua, a language he didn't speak, "The gate breathes again. We are remembered." Inti watched him warily. The local legends spoke of chosen minds, those whose consciousness could echo beyond stars, who were susceptible to the call. Elena, both terrified and awestruck, began to accept what her instincts had long whispered. This was never about the past. The Inca hadn't vanished into myth. They had ascended, crossing through the monolith not as a tomb, but as a portal. Now, with the alignment fast approaching, the visions grew stronger. The monolith didn't just pulse with energy, it resonated with memory, with intent. And somewhere across time and stars, someone was listening back. The pieces finally began to align, not just in data, but in purpose. The monolith was not a relic, but a remnant of a celestial departure. Elena stood on a cliff overlooking Machu Picchu as the realization sank in. This place wasn't abandoned. It was left behind, intentionally, carefully, like a home no longer needed. The quipus, once thought to be primitive record-keeping tools, now revealed their truest form. Flight paths encoded in braids, timelines knotted with stellar configurations. They weren't writing history, they were scripting departure. Under growing electromagnetic surges, ancient mechanisms began activating beneath the temple of the sun. Slabs shifted, walls clicked, and deep below, a chamber flooded with golden light opened. Inside, murals, etched not in ink, but with luminescent minerals, told the story of a civilization's choice. A cosmic invitation, a race against cataclysm, a pact sealed not with gods, but with visitors. The Inca elite, astronomers, healers, chosen bloodlines, were not victims of fate, but volunteers for something greater. They ascended not into myth, but into the stars, integrated into a collective beyond Earth. Yet questions clawed at Elena. Why only them? What of the farmers, the artisans, the rest? The answer came not from words, but from presence. Inti's younger sister, Amaru, a quiet guide in training, stepped forward. She removed her poncho to reveal a glowing birthmark beneath her collarbone, an exact replica of the symbol etched at the monolith's base. The room fell silent. It skipped generations, Inti whispered. She is a descendant, a guardian reborn. Amaru's eyes filled with ancient memory, and her voice, soft yet commanding, spoke in both Quechua and something older, deeper. The path was never closed, only sleeping. As Elena met her gaze, the truth struck like thunder. The exodus never ended. It was paused until now. Weeks after Amaru's revelation, Elena received a transmission that halted her breath. A declassified satellite image leaked through obscure scientific channels, revealing an anomaly buried deep beneath Antarctica's ice shelf. A monolith, identical in shape, dimension, and pulse to the one at Machu Picchu. The pattern was clear now. The Inca monolith was not unique. It was part of a global network, dormant for centuries, now flickering awake under the same celestial alignment. Her team traveled south, navigating through biting wind and white silence to a remote international research outpost. There, buried beneath 200 meters of ice, they found it cold, silent, but humming beneath the surface, as if recognizing her presence. And then, it began to glow. Inside the station, seismic activity surged. The ice cracked with eerie precision, revealing an entrance ringed with the same Inca glyphs seen in Peru. The monolith activated, forming a swirling, translucent gateway. Readings spiked. Communications went dark. It wasn't just a portal, it was a summons. In those final moments, Elena faced the greatest decision of her life. Amaru stood beside her, eyes locked on the portal. Not afraid, but calm, resolute, as if returning home. The visions returned. Starborn vessels, cultures braided together across galaxies. Not conquered, but recruited. The sky's hunger was never about war. It was about preservation, diversity, evolution. Earth's brightest civilizations, taken not to be erased, but to survive elsewhere. But the question remained, were they saviors or something more cunning? The Antarctic winds howled. One by one, her team made their choice. Some stayed, some stepped through. Elena hesitated. Then, with a final look back at the fragile world she loved, she stepped into the light. The gateway shimmered, and from within, a shape emerged. Not alien, not Inca,